Chapter 5. I stop writing and close the notebook slowly and securely as if something had been resolved. I tap its cover, signaling a gesture of appreciation for that last experience. Perhaps I tap the cover of the notebook as if I were patting a deceased relative in a coffin at a funeral, their cold knuckles being the notepad's ring-bound spine. I look up. The women had left, leaving behind American colors and drinks. It was much grayer now. The comfort of Britain returned to me, and all one can do is hardly acknowledge it. I finish my pint of beer and head out confidently, as if I know where I am going. I do not know where I am going. I walk across the golf course and down the Brayford toward town. I think about life and death, as if they were different settings on Christmas tree lights. The world is so relentless that death could never be seen as a stopping or slowing down of it. Life has no time for death. In the event of death, the phenomenon of it gets picked up, moved along like a dog picking up a stick with its jaws. Death is ridiculed by life, turned into artifacts, funerary rites, turned into words and memories that humans find mournful. In other words, death is given a type of life. The closest thing we can experience to death are things we do not know about, such as black holes and the bottom of the deepest, darkest oceans. Instead, we make death a type of uniquely human loss which embodies the world and its culture, similar to any living thing. In a sense, nothing ever died. That is, no one ever experienced this thing called death. At that point where a dying man is grasping onto those last moments of life, at that point where he closes his eyes and waits to experience it, he instead dies without experiencing it. The experience is terminated before being experienced, because you have to be alive to experience things. The only real thing is the crime, the act of murder. That can be experienced, made informative, celebrated. It changes the life of the murderer more than the life of the murdered. In this banal, neutral world, there are only things that are guilty or not guilty. There is no rest for those that are guilty, wicked. Everything is animated by this section of society, this special gene. They are the only ones capable of equaling life. I promise you there is nothing more to this flat piece of paper entitled existence. We have refused this fact for so long, made the paper into brightly set colors, turned this paper into commodities, extensions of our own resentment and desire like infinitely extended origami objects. And then we just move them around, inch by inch, hoping that they will transform our world into something beautiful. A police car had parked in the middle of the street, roughly 5 meters ahead of me. I was immediately sick in the Fosdike Canal. I spat the last bits of sick out into the water and watched them float off like stupid children at a water ride in Florida. I looked up and smiled at the policeman. Such an offensive vehicle they drive about in. Offensive to aesthetics, I mean. Too many colors for one object. What is it? Blue, red, yellow, white? Is there orange in there somewhere? How sickly, I thought. Is it contagious? Is it far removed from the colors of the Roman law? Things had to die in order for us to create color. The red dye used to produce deep crimson comes from the guts of the Armenian cochineal. Colors stemming from their geological milieu, plants, insects, colors of the Mediterranean. The colors of today are far removed from everything. It would be punishment enough to be chauffeured about in such a thing. I laughed, perhaps disturbingly. The policeman turned around and looked in my direction. I glanced down at the floor and then followed the floating sick downstream with my eyes. Later, I began to see these constabulary colors everywhere. In every manufactured product a color appeared, first as a printed surface, and then perhaps as a simulation of color, these simulations pointing to ghosts of prior sensations. Where these colors come from, I do not know. Was there once a world where color existed as truth and not merely the representation of an image? Some other world perhaps expressed through vivid pigments crammed full with sensation? But such a world didn't appear to be reigning within the world we had made. In fact, this world of pure color seemed imprisoned by a strange human instrumentality, making color an upgrade, an embellishment, bridled to the objects we desire, making such desirable. I wondered to myself if the world would miss the parts that I had taken from it, if I should replace the things that I had stolen from it and used. Do people not recognize the gaps in the world of the everyday that I have left? I walk over the University Bridge and spot the fashion department on the second floor of the Art and Design building. It stands at the end of the corridor. and from the outside you can see it jut out like the cockpit of a spaceship, as if the entire building were infinitely deliberating flight. Does it know that one of its rooms has one less object in it? Do the students? I thought this unlikely because it was the summer holidays and most students had returned to their families. Do the gardens of the lawn know that I have pulled something out of it, from its soil? What a humiliating patch of soil I must have left there. What blessed natural colors have I deflowered for myself, for Tracy? It is not enough to loose him and let him go, John 11:44, fourth Gospel. One must be mended and dressed. Replacing old objects, I said to myself, I will be giving everyone a new object, finally, a new object that corresponds to the concept, the abstract, the universal, the ideal. And no one will be looking around foolishly and selfishly for misplaced objects such as stationery and money. No, instead, they will be fixed in their comprehension. I utter calmly that it is my secret and my faith, and I am to stare into her because of the things that I have done, because of my nihilism, or rather because I still care deeply about meaning in a world where it has become trivialized. This is my burden. This is my millstone hung around my neck, Matthew 18:6, first Gospel. Christ comes to all his herd that listen. Prayers are always received personally, but a nihilist struggles with God through raw experience.